That's the ephemeral nature of, that's the first time I've used the word ephemeral. Talking of words, as we do with them.
That's the best segue ever. Hey, Ellie.
Hey, Andrew.
Welcome to the Showstopper Podcast, our monthly chat to amazing people from the world of musicals, improv, and comedy. From the people who brought you Showstopper, the improvised musical, which is a musical that's improvised.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Does what it says on the tin every time.
How you doing, Ellie?
I'm really well, thank you, yeah. I'm hydrated. I just had a sip of water. I live in the present moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more present moment than having a sip of water. Not even, a full glass of water, just a sip.
Yeah, that's all I needed, just to top myself up. How are you?
Yeah, great. We've been doing some performances of Showstopper, the improvised musical, around the country.
They've been going terribly well.
I thought for a second you were about to say they've been going terribly.
I lulled you in.
You absolutely lulled me in. We did some delightful ones when you were away on holiday.
Oh, well, that's good timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When this guy goes out of the country. A carousel was one of them. Was that Horsham?
Oh, yes. Well remembered. That was in Norwich, a classic setting, which is an abandoned theme park.
It's amazing how people like it to be abandoned.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I think we've done a few non-abandoned theme parks over the years, but yeah, there's something just particularly enticing about an abandoned theme park.
There's always a kind of add-on with a theme park ask, isn't there? Like, we've done underwater theme parks, we've done theme parks in space. Didn't it go with something like Carousel?
Yeah, that was the final title of the musical was Carousel, because it was sort of abandoned, haunted. It was that classic story of a group of people who died at a theme park and their children bought the theme park to sort of explore their legacy and find out what really happened.
Sounds great. It's like a Scooby-Doo episode for adults.
Yeah, I played all of the parents in a sort of multi-role 6-character performance.
I'm in. That sounds absolutely amazing. And then you went to Horsham as well. Do you remember anything about those shows? That's the thing when you're a showstopper, isn't it? It's so difficult to recall any piece of information when someone asks you.
Yeah.
That's the ephemeral nature of, that's the first time I've used the word ephemeral.
How proud are you feeling on a scale from 1 to 10?
Really proud. Almost as hydrated as I'm feeling.
You're hydrated and verbose.
But that's a good word. Will this feeling last or will it be ephemeral? It's a really nice word to say.
Ephemeral.
Talking of words.
That's the best segue ever.
We've done a really lovely podcast this time with the brilliant Fred Huddlestone of Choir of Man fame.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Movement director and choreographer, tap dancer extraordinaire, a fantastically trained dancer, incredible creative mind behind Choir of Man, the West End hit.
Absolutely. The first movement director we've had on the show. And close to your heart, Ali, as movement director of Showstopper, the improvised musical.
Absolutely. I kind of wish that we could have done a physical version of the podcast as it was happening, an interpretive dance of some sort. Maybe next time.
We recorded this episode at Caddy's Comedy Club in Southend. Duncan Walsh Atkins on keys, back in September.
Oh, those warm months of September. And now where are we?
Right now, it's a cold January morning. I mean, not technically for you and me right now, but by the time anyone listens to this, it'll be a cold New Year's Day.
Oh boy, it's going to be cold by then because time is ephemeral.
Shall we listen to that?
Yes, please.
Welcome, Fred Huddlestone.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So good to have you, Freddie boy.
Yeah.
Look at your smiley face there. You've rushed all the way from rehearsal.
I know, all the way from London, and here we are in Southend. Went through Southend High Street, got here, done. Got some water, done.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
How are rehearsals going?
They're all good. It's all coming along. It's 2.0 West End Choir of Man cast. So we've got 5 new people. So it's a lot of energy, a lot of new energy to give people who are like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good fun. It's nice to have new blood in shows, isn't it?
Oh,
Keeps
yeah.
it fresh for everyone, doesn't it? So
Totally.
that's where I'm at, really.
And for listeners who don't know what Choir of Man is, what is Choir of Man?
Oh, what's an elevator pitch Choir of Man? It's 9 blokes in a local pub. We drink beer. We have a working bar that the audience can get beer from, and we give beer out in the show. And we sing songs with acoustic guitars, covers like Welcome to the Jungle and like Adele. And we just have lots of fun. And it's not got a storyline, but it's just like a really nice welcome for people, a nice night out, good fun. And then it very sort of lightly touches on what a pub is to a man. And it's very, very gently, not not much, but just enough to sort of go, it's special to some people sometimes. So yeah, that's kind of roughly what it is.
Yeah, amazing. And you are one of the performers and also movement director.
I'm the movement director, choreographer, and I'm the original handyman track, which is the tap dancer. This time I'm not. I'm hanging up my shoes for a hot minute because lots of other people want to do it, and I've ticked it for now, and I'm still associate directing on it, so I'm still watching it twice a week. Cracking that rip, making sure it's all good. But yeah, other than that, I'm just sort of setting it up this time, yeah.
You said you're the handyman, so there are different character names in the show, are there?
Yeah, there's the pub bore, who's the one who kind of goes around boring people with useless information. There's the barman, obviously. There's the romantic, who's kind of our sort of person who's in relationships, and there's a story there, sort of. So yeah, there's a few sort of, names of people, but they're quite sort of, not in a bad way, they're quite paper thin, and a lot of the character are the people that we hire in the show. So it's kind of, they've got a track, they've got a narrative, but actually what you see when you come watch the show is more the individual in that track rather than a character.
And do you get some of the audience up on stage at points? I think I've seen some photos of that.
We do. We get them up at the beginning of the show, and there's bits throughout the show which we also integrate and just get them up. And we kind of quite quickly, what's nice is we break the wall on where the stage ends and where the audience begin. And we kind of like that because it feels like it's not too much of a theatrical show. So yeah, we get them up during the show throughout bits as well, which is fun. Good for them. Surprising for them when they don't know it's coming. So yeah, it's good fun.
And how did you first get involved in Caravan? Were you there at its inception?
Yeah, so I worked for a producer who's also the director called Nick Dudson, and he produced and directed a group called The Magnets, which is a cappella singing, bunch of guys doing a cappella singing.
Yeah.
So I started working off with him, and I sort of learned quite quickly how to move people who have to jump up and down and what's reasonable to expect and what's not. So I worked with him for a little bit, and I also worked with another friend of mine called Jack Bloom, and we, in our sort of, very early days out of college, we had no money, but we made a tap show, which the show was crap, but the team was good. And then we basically rekindled our sort of, we found each other, and then we just kind of all got involved. And Nick had this idea from an Australian producer called Andrew Kay about the Choir of Man, which was originally, he wanted it being Australian set in a barbecue. But Nick, being British, and he'd done a lot of travelling from, the UK, he said, I don't know much about barbecues, but I do know about pubs. And then the Choir of Man was born. We then sort of, all three of us, along with our writer Ben Norris, who writes all this, there's narrative sort of poetry throughout the show as well. We sat in a room and we basically went, let's think of pub songs, and let's think of songs that you might hear in a pub. So certain songs that didn't make the cut were things like Red Red Wine by UB40 and things like that. But yeah, and we just sort of then went, let's set the show in the pub, let's have songs that we might hear in a pub done in like a more of an acoustic guitar way. And we do arrangements with that. Jack Bloom, our musical supervisor, has done amazing arrangements which make these songs take on a new version that's quite of a Choir of Man sound. So yeah, no, it's really good fun, and that's how I got involved. So we did the first Edinburgh Fringe performance, and we made it into a show. None of us had a clue what we were doing. It was all over the place, and then we went, it's not awful. So carried on, went to Adelaide Fringe, and then we just carried on from there, really. I think we sort of found, as you do with shows, you kind of find it on your, for us anyway, a second or third or fourth go at going, it's not quite that, but it's mostly that, and then change this, add that, tweak that. And then, yeah, we kind of found this formula of this style of show, and it's fed my dog ever since, which is great.
You've got two lovely little dogs.
Lovely. The French Bulldogs. I mean, they're lovely. Best thing I've ever spent money on is a dog, definitely. Hands down.
Nice.
Hands down, yeah.
And it's taking you all over the world. You mentioned Adelaide Festival. You've been to Sydney Opera House. You've been to Kennedy Centre in New York. Yeah, we did Kennedy Centre. So we did a US tour, which I did the first time round, and that was amazing because you're doing the full-on sleeper on a bus every night. You wake up with a few hours sleep, and then you go on and you can barely work out where the dressing room is, where the coffee is, and then you go on stage, then get back on the bus at midnight and drive for 5 hours, 6 hours, and then somewhere else. So yeah, we went and did a US tour, and Kennedy Centre was one of the places we went. But we've played the Opera House a couple of times now, and I actually I wasn't supposed to go out, but I managed to, because unfortunately one of our cast got injured over COVID. But actually it was the time when Australia was opening up, actually, and I managed to get out there to do a run there, so that was incredible. When you said you weren't meant to be on it, it sounded like you were a stowaway for a second. I wasn't meant to be there, but I hid in the cargo plane.
I was like, I've got to get out of the UK. anything. So yeah, that was really cool. And then we've also got we're on Norwegian Cruise Lines as well. We're on a couple of their ships, which is a really interesting. It's so funny. You take the same show and you plonk it in different venues. Everyone wants a different version of it slightly, and that's also really, it's a very different vibe. Americans they like the idea of pub culture, but it's a bit different. They like Irish pubs, and they've not really necessarily know what a local is over there. It's not quite the same.
Yeah,
I'm just grateful it's still going. I thought I started off being like, oh, I'll still pay my rent for a week or a month, and then it's still going. So I'm just keep enjoying the ride, keep having fun with it.
Olivier nominated as well.
Yeah, from the last run. I don't really think about these things too much. I just kind of carry on doing the job, and it was amazing. We got to go to the Olivier's, and we got to go and see what it's all about, get dressed up. It was lovely. Yeah, it was really fun. So nice for the doors to still be open, the show still be running. That's all I ever mind. All I care about, really.
I mean, this is the thing as a performer, isn't it? You never know when you take a job what life it's going to have.
No.
I mean, I've been in Showstopper now for 13 years or something.
Wow.
Too long.
I haven't seen it yet, which is awful of me, but that must does it keep it fresh? Is that why you've been doing it for 13 years?
Yeah, I think we're lucky in that sense that you don't have the classic problem with a long-running show of I'm just going through the motions now, I'm bored. Well, it does have the other problem that it gets really mentally exhausting because you're always starting from scratch and you can't do it on autopilot.
Sure, yeah.
So it has, and particularly when we're in a long run, then you'll find if you do a matinees are so difficult. Finish the matinee and you can't remember what you just did. Or that evening show.
And sometimes you might have an interesting moment where you think, did I call you Simon in the first show of the day when you do a 2-show day in Showstopper as well?
Yeah, right.
And you sort of lose track in that sense, rather than have we been in this scene before already today in a scripted show?
Yeah.
There are those check-in moments when you think, oh, have I endowed you as that already?
What's your name?
Yeah.
That's a different sort of mental gymnastics you got to play then, on top of just doing the job as well, which is, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. It's good fun though. We're very lucky, Andrew, aren't we?
Oh, big time. I get to work with Ali James.
I get to work with Andrew Pugsley.
You almost forgot my surname there.
I was racking my brains for the D, for the middle name.
Oh, yeah. Can you guess?
David?
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Right.
There
Easy,
we go.
classic. Not difficult to guess.
Got a middle
That's
name,
not the best guessing game in the world.
No,
Crazy.
it's not. Yes, I have. Thank you for asking.
What is it?
It's Claire with an I. Yes.
Mine begins with R. Can you guess?
Is it Robert?
No.
Oh.
On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is classic
standard,
David.
might expect it.
10 is like I'd never guess that in a million
I
years.
think about in the middle, maybe about 5.
Wow. Is it Rodriguez?
No, 2 syllable.
No, the Rodriguez. It's right
I think
in the
that's
middle
quite
of that
high.
for
That
you.
would be
I
quite
think
high.
it is, yeah.
Okay, I'd say that's higher. It's lower than that.
It's lower than Rodriguez.
2 syllable.
Ryan.
Could be, but not. But that's probably a little bit lower on the scale now.
Robin.
I'd say Robin, no. Have one more guess each, then I'll say.
Randy, as in Randy Newman.
No.
Oh, you'd be good as a Randy Newman.
Yeah. It's
I
Russ.
think
Go on.
Russell.
Oh, you said it. I said it.
Russell.
We said it. Russell. So yeah, I'm Frederick Russell Huddlestone.
That's a great name.
Haven't used the Frederick yet. I think I'll use it in later life.
I think you should be one of those people who have like F. Russell Huddlestone. Difficult to say. F. Russell Huddlestone.
That's a good tongue twister, yeah. We'll use that in a warm-up one time, Fred Russell Huddlestone.
Fred Russell Huddlestone.
And you'll get 5p every time we do it.
That sounds more. That sounds great.
I want to go back to Sydney Opera House.
Yeah.
What is it like to perform at the Sydney Opera House? It's like such an iconic building, and we're so familiar with it, and it's like just a symbol of being so grand and awesome. And like, I want to know, is it just as backstage as every other theatre?
No, I tell you what, the stage we were on wasn't the main big whopper
Yeah.
that looks like inside. We were on the smaller one, which is kind of a sort of raised seating either side. But I tell you what, the green room in the Sydney Opera House is the best green room I've ever been in my life.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just that classic thing that you're sat in these sofas, it's got its whole canteen area, and then you see a bunch of ballet dancers sort of going by, and they're off to rehearsals, and you've got an opera down there. So it does feel like the sort of Star Wars cantina type vibe, which I really enjoyed. That was quite cool. And you've got a lovely view of the harbour as well, which you can only see from there in the green room, which is overlooking the harbour, which is really quite fun. It's a nice place to chill out. So we got a lot of chill out time there. Yeah.
Did they give you any snacks?
I remember the beer. That was more
yeah.
what I'd remember. I can't remember the name of it, but it was pale ale, but it definitely tasted like lager. And I think we're just starting to get it over here, but I can't remember the name of it. But it was good. But they have schooners over there, which is somewhere between a pint and a half pint. But it looks like a pint, but it's not. So yeah, it was a bit shifty first time I saw it. I was like, that's not a pint, is it? Don't know.
Is it metric? Is it like 500 ml?
Yeah, it's somewhere between a half and a full pint, which was interesting to find. That was the first time.
So if you give out pints in the Choir of Man, then was it like a more fun show in Australia because the pints were bigger?
No,
I mean,
they're
what
smaller.
happened? Or
Well,
smaller?
No,
I'm not up with my
to be
metrics.
honest, whenever someone gets any size beer during the show, they're kind of pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, fair
they're
enough.
like, oh, fair enough. It's great. Yeah. It's more what type of beer they get. It depends if you get unlucky and, we've had some really fun. I think we've had Candom Hells before, which is fun. We had Carlsberg for the last run, which I wasn't as big a fan of. But then you
Sure.
sometimes get some guest breweries, which are smaller and local, and that kind of fits in.
Great.
That fits in kind of with the world of
That's
what
cool,
what
yeah.
the kind of the show sort of is talking about. Pubs closing down.
So
and,
you don't have like a load of beer just on your tour van. You like get them. as
Yeah,
you-
no, we have with West End, we've got Carlsberg who are providing that beer, so we
Right.
get it delivered and they install the pumps and everything like that. So
Oh yeah, because it's all on tap.
yeah, it's all on tap. But I think it should be really the old school. The old school pumps. That's really more what I think we suit. But that's fine. It's not my job. I just make sure everyone's standing in the right place.
But
the
it's
right
good
time.
to have the aspirations.
Yeah.
When you're making the choreography, Fred, what's your area of expertise, would you say?
We got some really good feedback when we first started this. I started choreographing this show, and our Australian producer, Andrew Kay, came in and he gave us some really amazing feedback, and it's actually shaped the way that I make movement now, and I like to make movement, which is actually that it looked like choreography and it looked too much and it didn't look natural enough. So the actual thing that I kind of have learned to do over the course of sort of 5 years is unchoreographed choreography, which I adore because it's
Wow.
just the funnest thing that I mean, I have a saying in Choir of Man, and it's like, if it looks like we're doing a thing, then we've overdone it. That's what I kind of think, and I live by that model, teaching the show, and now I have to teach other creatives how to do it. I actually have to tell them to be work in this messy style, not be too clean, but it is very pinpointed, it's very designed, but it's a messy design, and that's the kind of movement that I've adored making, especially the guys that we get in. They're not typical step, kick, turn dancers, but they have energy and vibe. It's like if you go to a rock concert, you think, well, you're not trained, but you've got more grounding and vibe than a lot of performers I've seen that I belong to. When I want to go out, that's what I want to see. So we kind of work in this style of being like, you don't actually have to be the most trained dancer. You just have to be kind of like open to being like free and kind of, risk taking and energizing. And that's kind of what I love to work with now. And it's just enjoyable. Yeah.
That must be quite a gear shift for you because you did train as a sort of musical theatre dancer, didn't you?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that area of it still helps me to, I can still very much the style of Choir of Man will be kind of this messy style, but in terms of blocking and spacing and ordering people and timing and rhythm, that stuff's all the same from any other show, really. I guess my challenge that I sort of have to come up with is how to disguise it so we can't see it coming.
Yeah.
So we do burst out into bits of choreography, but it's very much kind of, if we've ninjaed the audience and they see it last second or they don't see it and they go, oh God, how they're in that position, then I've done my job. And that's
Yeah.
kind of that's what I love to do really at the minute.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that movement by stealth.
Yeah, stealth movement. Yeah.
And when you were training, you trained in Southend, didn't you? You
Yeah.
born and bred here?
I'm not. I trained in Tiffany Theatre College down the road, and I went there for 3 years. Best 3 years of my life. I loved training. It was great. I loved being in any class, ballet class, whatever. It was brilliant. Loved it. Great. But I'm actually from Lincolnshire, a bit further north. So I'm from. My mum and dad live in the middle of nowhere in Lincolnshire, where there's deer up the back garden, very quiet, and that was my whole life up to sort of 16, 18, and then moved to Essex, and I was like, wow, London, it's all close to London, the sea, and so it was a real fun gear shift, which was cool.
And were you always a performer as a kid?
Disco floors. I actually started just when Billy Elliot was kicking off, which was really annoying for my parents because they just thought, I'd already been dancing in discos, last person on disco floor, till midnight or whatever. But I started thinking, my parents were like, we'll put him in a class, but it was just when Billy Elliot came out. So we sort of got, he's a boy dancer, he wants to take up the trend or whatever. But I went through a few different dancing schools and I just really enjoyed it. And tap was the thing that I first started with. And that's kind of my biggest, choreographic, other than sort of movement direction, is tap, which I did a lot of. Quite late, really. I started at 12, so I didn't start earlier on that, but I did a lot of training of that throughout college, and it's very similar. It's very musical. It's more like a drum kit, so I kind of like that, the rhythmical aspect of that.
And have you used tap a lot in your working career as a dancer?
Yeah, I think it relates to any sort of rhythm. So I'm just saying, anytime you're hitting rhythms, or we're working with 7 or 8 musicians in the room. Sometimes they're drummers, but they all work off of rhythm. So actually being able to have that dialogue with musicians is really kind of important. You know, I started just recently playing jazz piano because I'm around all these amazing musicians all day that play 5 or 6 instruments, and I've started. But so yeah, it's nice to have a bit of a language of any sort of musician and be like, oh, well, I've got, you know, I can at least follow where you're at, and it's quite helpful.
What is your dream job that you haven't yet done?
Because of what Choir of Man's done, I didn't expect its journey to be going on as long as it has. I really enjoy the process of a job where you are in a room and you don't have all the answers. And so really for me, it's not as specific like, oh, I really want to do this. I know that I want to create original work. I don't want to recreate. I did a lot of assisting people. You know, I assisted Matt Cole on the Producers International tour, and that's great. But it was a wonderful learning experience. But I prefer it when there isn't a path laid out to follow, if that makes sense. So anything original, and actually just being back in a rehearsal room where you've got a few chairs and tables and you've got to come up with ideas. That's really my next sort of ambition after Choir of Man. It's kind of get the next thing going and be in the room where you're tearing your hair out on, you know, preview 4 going, what have I done? Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to being scared again. That's a nice place to be. I don't think you should be too comfortable. Do you guys find that?
Yeah, for sure. I think probably that's why we do what we do, isn't it? Well, for me, it's just I don't have a very long attention span, I think. 90 minutes is my max. I can't hold any more information in my mind. So I think it's just that constant need for that adrenaline hit of what's it going to be tonight?
Yeah.
You know, where are we going to be? Who are we going to play? What's the story? It's just excitement, isn't it?
I watched the new David Bowie documentary at the cinema last night, Moon Age Daydream, which is great, and it has lots of little audio excerpts from, you know, kind of interviews across the year. There's one bit where he says, my one bit of advice for anyone involved in something creative is just push yourself out of your comfort zone and just go into deeper water. And if you ever think like you can stand up, then go out until you just feel like you just can't quite cope. And then you're in the interesting place.
That's the interesting thing that I think I learned quite early on, is that when you're in the first initial meetings talking to people who are asking you about an idea, there's no world that you actually have all the answers. But you have to get used to being scared to be like, I know that I don't know, but that's actually part of the process. So I just go, yep, I'll do it. It'll work. It'll be fine. Because otherwise you don't ever get past that point. I mean, there's no one, I don't think, I've never had all the answers before I've started on something. So that's a nice thing going into the next thing, being like, it's normal to be quite out your depth going into something. That's normal. That's creation, isn't it? Like,
that's what they say, isn't it? Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Get out there. Has anyone ever done anything other than performance that's really fearful, like a skydive?
I've never done a skydive.
I've not, and I don't know if I would.
I did a skydive, guys.
I love that that question was very much an introduction to your anecdote. Great.
To my own experience.
Hey, Ali, have you ever done anything terrifying?
This podcast is now called Ali Skydive. It was a gift, a birthday gift. Why you would get that for someone?
That's a bold gift.
Isn't it just?
Had you expressed any desire to do a skydive before you got the gift, or was it completely out of the blue?
Not at all. Literally out of the blue as well.
Wow.
Falling out of the sky with someone strapped on my back. Like, just, insane, really. And so we went and did this thing in Dorset.
Mad.
I couldn't believe it was happening. I just couldn't believe it. I was sat on the edge of the plane thinking to myself, this is not my character in any way at all. And and did it, felt the fear, did it anyway. And it was an amazing experience, but I would safely say I'll never do it again. And I drank a lot of tea afterwards to calm down.
I need to do it now. That sounds like you've sold me on not doing it.
It was an adrenaline-fueled hit.
That story is great coming from you, Alex. As you said, so out of character for you to do a skydive, but so thoroughly in character that you'd be so polite as not to not do it.
That's really true. I couldn't say no to it. This person gave me it in a little envelope. I thought, it would be a nice HMV voucher or something. It was back in the day.
Wow.
And it was that. Yeah, so there you go. Wow. But it does feel much the same when you're behind the screen waiting to do Showstopper. So at least it prepared me for that. So
there you go. Wow. I'm a total wimp with these things. Showstopper had a brief trip to Dubai once, a corporate performance or whatever. And the amazing hotel that they had us staying at, you also got access to the amazing water park that was like on the grounds of this resort. It was amazing. We spent an afternoon just like at the water park, and they have there the Jumeirah Scarra, which at the time was the tallest water slide in the world. in my mind, like I'd never been on a water slide that was terrifying, so I didn't quite comprehend of how difficult that might be. And it turns out you got into this little pod.
Oh, I know
was
what
sort
you're
of
doing,
watching it. Sort of as people went down, and it's like, okay, and they get you to like cross your arms across your chest and cross your feet or whatever, and then there's a little countdown.
Skydive flashback.
And it was like
Sounds similar.
It seemed quite scary, and then when I actually got in the pod, it turned out to be way scarier because I thought this little pod just kind of shot down the slide. But what happens is you get inside, it's like a perspex dome kind of closes over your face, and then you're trapped in this little tube, and then an electronic counter goes 3, 2, 1, and then at 1, it's not that the capsule kind of slides down, it's the floor below you disappears, and you fall through a hole in the ground.
Amazing.
And apparently, my colleagues who were left at the top said the scream that I emitted was earth-shattering, and a guy with his young son apparently said, "That man screams like a girl, don't be him."
Wow.
Which is not a great message for the kid, but also a measure of how loudly I was.
We do know that falsetto is high and it is strong, Andrew, because when your meatloaf is out on display, it's really quite brilliant.
Well, that is nothing to going down the Jumeirah.
What would meatloaf sound like going down the Jumeirah, I wonder? That's a show in itself.
That's a show.
We could take that to Edinburgh.
Done.
Yeah, done.
You could do the movement on it, Fred.
Oh, happily.
You could do
I'll have to get a video of your position down the slide and the pitch of your noise. Yeah, that's it. Done.
Sydney Opera House. Best green room in the world. Ali, do you have any best and worst amazing venue stories?
I did a show where someone died.
Oh my God.
It was a nursing home tour, so I guess it's sort of to be expected. You have to prepare yourself for that sort of thing. But when you're mid the weakest link impression as Anne Robinson, you don't expect that sort of thing to happen. It's not top of your list, and it did happen, and it was very dark and upsetting. So I'm glad I brought it to the table today as an example. It didn't happen in a green room, but it was a traumatic experience. And I think the most probably glamorous thing I've ever done is Blackpool Opera House.
Nice.
When
it's
I
always
was
the opera houses,
isn't it? They're so beautiful, aren't they? Big old theatre, lots and lots of people there. I think it's something like 3,000, probably misquoting that, but and I was really young, and I went on for my debut in as my understudy cover in Whistle Down the Wind, and it was quite incredible, really, doing that in that size venue. It was terrifying, and when I came off stage, all of my family were there, and I didn't know they were coming up to watch it. And Southend to Blackpool's quite a trek, isn't it?
Yeah, wow.
And they got there in very short time, and it was a really wonderful experience, And then I also did a show in a coastal theatre, which I won't name, where it was winter and all of the heating was broken.
I quite like a rubbish backstage. Though. It's quite theatre for me. I'm like, it's a bit scrappy, and you just bring your Tesco's bag and your meal deal. You sit down, chat to people in this chair that's not been replaced for years. That's kind of what I like about some of these places. Yeah,
I always love the venues that have immaculate front of houses. Yeah, and then like anything the public sees is beautiful, and then backstage it's like, this has not been renovated in some time.
It's like a metaphor for an actor, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, what's going on underneath?
Renovated.
Exactly,
Needs some renovation.
Yeah.
I did a show once at the Skipton Mart Theatre, which is an extraordinary venue which doubles as a theatre and a cattle auction house.
Wow.
It's really quite extraordinary. and so it's all breeze blocks inside because cattle sort of goes through there generally, and has quite an odour of sort of bovine accidents, and that the off-stage area is just open to the air because obviously they literally bring in the cattle from fields into the theatre, and so if you're waiting like between scenes or like doing a quick change, like you're literally changing outside in December.
That's why things like Ricky Gervais's extras work so well, because they're real stories, aren't they? Of real people's experiences. Exactly. Yeah. We've all been there as actors and performers, knowing those moments when you meet another actor's eyes and it's like, this is not our life, and you're surrounded by cowpat and you've still got to go on stage. And what was your show at Skipton? What were you doing?
It was for a children's theatre company that will remain nameless.
Always
All
those
these
kids
nameless,
shows.
nameless shows.
Yeah.
I once operated, it was one of my first jobs while I was still in college, and I will name the place because I don't care. I went to Cleethorpes, Pleasure Island,
yeah.
and we did the Tommy Tinkerboo show. And I was there as a dancer, but I operated the lights as well.
Amazing.
And the smoke. I think I turned the whole building on, and then Tommy Tinkerboo show happened, and then lights, and it was, that was an eye-opener.
Did you have to dance as you were doing the lights?
I don't honestly remember. I think that Tommy Tinkerboo was on stage and I did a few lights and a bit of smoke, and then I came on and did a bit of nothing, and then everyone
whilst he
screamed.
did your lights.
Yeah, no one needed the show, but it went on every day regardless at 12
happened
every day.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happened anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, memorable things that you find. But I think all those crap things are actually one of the things that I'm like, I don't care what it is, being on set and being like, middle of the night and you're all kind of like delusional in half an outfit or somewhere. Like I love being, in tech or something, anything like that. Lights go dark and then they come up. You're in this weird, mystical, not day, not night, not this world, not any world. It's really cool.
And we talked obviously about your love of dancing and movement directing. What's your relationship with singing? Because of course you sing in Choir of Man.
Well, interestingly, it's one that I've come to terms with. Actually, Choir of Man has changed my view on myself as a singer, because I actually came to Choir of Man. I had some really good training in college, but I actually think that the style of singing that I did gave me a lot of confidence that when I first went in, I don't think that I really had. Like, I don't think I really thought I was able to hold a tune.
Right.
I thought I was more kind of there because it made sense at the time when we first did Edinburgh. And it was one of those, we all have those all personal battles with ourselves, which is so boring, isn't it? But I had one of those with myself about singing for quite a while. And actually now I actually am like, no, I've been doing it for 5-6 years. I actually know a thing now or two. And I'm happy to hold myself, especially doing what we do in Choir of Man. It's not every single, apart from the handyman role, everyone else sings a main track. The handyman's main bit is his tap routine. And that's kind of what I did. But actually the harmony that you've got to hold, the ability to hear 5 different other harmonies and pitch something else, that's almost where I feel like I really enjoy sitting in the whole singing area. It's actually just harmony singing, and that's a skill in itself. And not everyone needs to burst out one day more, do they? And I'm like, there's a place for that. And that's really nice to know. It's really enjoyable. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm like at peace with myself.
Your metaphor for your actor backstage is pretty tidy back there then. That sounds great.
Yeah, I think so.
You've got a very tidy backstage going on there,
I reckon
Fred.
so, yeah.
Very nice.
Don't take any of it too seriously. I just think it's just singing and dancing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's too much. I don't get too deep on anything in terms of it. I'm just like, turn up. Dogs are still getting fed. Lovely. Great. See you tomorrow. Do you know
That's
what I mean?
great. That's great.
Yeah, great. As long as the dog's been fed.
That's all that matters.
Can't
Dog's
complain.
been fed. And happy wife. Then come back tomorrow and do it again.
Amazing. Well, on that note, would you like to make up a song with us?
I would love to.
Hooray.
Yeah, let's do it.
Correct answer.
Okay, let's do one about a skydive.
Okay. So on my mark, I just want you to jump. Embrace the fear. Just go for it.
Will my chute open?
Don't worry.
But how will I know?
Just take a breath and leap. Just take a breath and see.
Just take a breath and jump and see what happens.
I'm looking at the sky. It looks so scary. What am I gonna do? Oh, my hairy God.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it now. Feel the fear and do it anyway. You'll make this jump somehow. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it now. Feel the fear and do it anyway. You'll get through this jump somehow.
And just imagine when you open your wings and you're soaring through the air.
I can see it now.
You'll see everything and you won't have a care.
The door is opening. I look outside. Oh my God, I'm about to go. And 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Let's go.
Feel the fear and do it jump. You'll get through this jump somehow.
I don't know what I was worried about.
Hey! Thank you so much, Fred Huddlestone.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
That was Fred Huddlestone. What a joy.
Such a lovely guy. You can imagine he's so sweet with his dogs. He's got such a kind heart.
He has. Shame it was a podcast and we couldn't also have him dance. But I mean, I guess we could just say he did an amazing dance routine that you're not able to see.
Yeah, and he is called Happy Feet Fred on social media.
Is he really?
So there you go. You'll be able to see him tap dancing out there, I'm sure, somewhere soon.
Ali, that is our episode.
What a joy it was.
What should people who've been listening to this episode do now?
They should probably go to either showstopperthemusical.com or any of our social media platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook to check out our content and jokes.
You are the social media robot. Please check out our jokes.
There actually are some really good jokes around from Showstopper because we have been putting out some really great videos recently, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a few like song challenges. My favorite one is the Wikipedia challenge where someone has to look up a random Wikipedia article and then make up a song about what they've just read on the spot. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, and also those ones where it's like a reimagined musical theatre classic.
Yeah.
I love those guessing games. That's a fun way to spend an afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, check those out on our social media. And also, come and see Showstopper the Improvised Musical. When we're on tour, we're in the West End once a month, and we're also probably at a city near or not too far away from you. That's probably all I have to say, Ali. Do you have anything else to say?
No, congratulations on what you said.
No, congratulations on what you've said and just everything you've done.
Thanks.
You're doing great.
I tell you one thing that's not ephemeral.
What?
Our friendship.
Knocked it out the park, listeners. See you next time.
Goodbye.